Hello, my friends, and welcome to the Talking Cryptocurrency Podcast. I'm your host, Jason Rigden. On this episode of the show, we're talking to Luigi D'Onorio, co-founder of Proof. They're trying to use the blockchain to fight fake news. But before we jump into the interview, I've got this quick message. I really hope you like this show. I put a lot of work into it. If you do like it, would you please consider doing something for me? Give me a review on Apple Podcasts. Now, if you're a hardcore podcast listener, you are probably sick of hearing this. Every show begs for reviews, and it's a little annoying. But it does make a big difference. Those reviews help people decide to subscribe. They help guests choose which shows to go on. Those ratings and reviews for the shows are a direct way you can help this show grow. So, if you like this show and you want more, please help me. Take the time and give the show a rating and review on Apple Podcasts or iTunes, or whatever they're calling it now. Hello, and on this episode, I'm here with Luigi from Proof. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm doing pretty good. So could you tell me a little bit about the problems that Proof is trying to solve?
Yeah, sure. So at this point in time on the internet, we believe that one of the largest problems is the constant misinformation, or what's commonly referred to as fake news on the internet. And, we kind of view this as one of the monumental problems facing our society at the moment. And it really stemmed from the early 1990s when the internet was coming about. This was going to be the democratization of content and the ability of all to have a voice. And, we all love that, and that's great. But then there was different type of centralized models that were built on top of the internet, which allowed people to provide a voice, but also allowed those centralized platforms to monetize it. And that was one problem, but there's many others associated with this democratization of content. And, what we're trying to solve at Proof, or what we view as the problem with this, quote unquote, democratization of content, is the fact that there is no quality control mechanism or a scalable quality control mechanism to try and filter through that content. And that's what we're aiming to build, the ability to filter through content, have some visibility into sources on the internet, and also understand, what you're reading from who, and provide a little bit of insight into those type of things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because fake news goes beyond just politics. There's a lot of it with healthcare. Pretty much any place where someone can make some money, there's going to be some fake news about it. And
also, it's quite a large problem outside of the United States, maybe even more so. And I think a lot of us forget that there's countries such as Venezuela, Nigeria. We have members of the team in my nationality of Italy. It's a monumental problem there as well. And we hope that we can build this out to become a global platform and allow people to have better understanding of what they're reading on the internet, especially with social media pushing out any type of content and making it seem legitimate at all times.
And so how is Proof solving this problem?
Yes, that's a great question. What we're doing at Proof at a high level is we are incentivizing a crowd of people to answer questions. That's at a high level. And really what this first product that we're releasing is going to solve the problem of fake news. That'll be the first question that we ask our voters to solve. And so the way it works is if you're reading through your news feed on your internet, and you come across a questionable article, something that you're not too sure about, you can take the URL, drop it into the Proof platform, submit it to us, and a ping will go out to all our voters. These are our characters on our platform who we refer to as voters. And it's very similar to how an Uber driver will see a ping for an upcoming drive. And those voters will see that this is an article that can be voted on. And what those voters do is they read through that article, they research the facts and the content in it, and then when they're ready, they submit a vote. And it's important to note that this is an independent and blind vote, so quite different than a TCR or something of that nature. So when they submit their blind vote, we tally all these votes using a proprietary algorithm in the background that is designed to only close a vote when we have a crowd, or what we determine to be the characteristics of a wise crowd, based on a lot of academic research from folks such as James Surowiecki and many other academics in the past. So once that vote is complete and the algorithm has determined that the vote is closed, we can post the score of the votes to the proof community and to the population at wide. And one thing I think I forgot to mention, but it's quite important, is the voters include an amount of tokens within their vote. So you're a voter, you read the article, you think it's false, and in order to weight your vote and really determine, how significant your vote is, you'll include a certain amount of tokens that you deem worthy of your vote, and you'll receive a payout once that algorithm is closed, depending on whether or not you were in the majority or the minority.
How does someone become a voter?
Yeah, sure. So our voters can be really anybody over the age of 18 who passes an identity verification. So we use an identity verification to stop civil attacks and the ability to create multiple accounts. And that's really who the voters are. The literature suggests that we don't need experts on individual subjects to vote. What we need is a large, diverse, and independent crowd of people who are incentivized to provide the truth. And that's what we think the mechanism that we've created has done.
So you don't have to, there's no filtering mechanism. It's not like you're deciding the person is an expert. It's more, you want a cross-section.
No, actually, yeah, it's a great point. And actually, the research suggests the opposite. And we'll be releasing an economic white paper probably in about a month or so, detailing, our findings and, how our algorithm and certain parameters of it work, and also, citing the research, the academic research that backs up our theory and what we're doing.
Do you have any protection against partisan voters coming in and trying to weight it on one side or the other?
It's a great question. And part of my background is in markets, and my co-founder, part of his background is in economics. He's a PhD economist. And what we've really been spending a ton of our time doing is trying to prevent collusion. And we have a few different ways to stop collusion. The first is we use something called quadratic voting, or a version of quadratic voting. And if anybody who's interested in different voting mechanisms, I recommend they pick up the book Radical Markets from Glenn Weil, where he explains some of this. So quadratic voting, really what it is if you want to vote 4 tokens, it's going to cost you 16 tokens. So basically, the cost of your vote is n squared. And what that does is if you actually go and model it, is it's very difficult for one person to buy a vote, especially if there's a minimum required amount of voters in order to close a vote. So it's possible to do it with small groups if it's a very small vote, but given the fact that our voters will be anonymous to each other and that they have to provide an identity verification, the quadratic voting does solve some of these concerns for people trying to lopside the vote or buy the vote. And the other thing that's quite important is that the vote is blind. You read the article, you submit your vote, you have no insight into when the vote is going to close, who's on the other side, what the current score is. So it's very different than a prediction market in that sense. And that's one of the necessary conditions to have a wise crowd. It's why prediction markets and stock markets and cryptocurrency markets fail in very large bubbles and bursts, because basically you have this herding effect where people see some people going in one direction, they all tend to pile on that same way. And we're trying to avoid that in every single way. So those are 2 aspects. The third thing is that you stand to lose money by voting your bias over time. If you are, let's say you're in a Republican and you're only going to vote for pro-Trump articles, then if everybody else is not doing that, or if a large majority of people are not doing that, and you realize after the first one, all right, well, I lost some money. You realize after the second one that you lost some money, you're probably not going to continue to do that. And you also, if you don't care about the money, it's also very difficult for you to buy the vote for the reasons that I mentioned before. So those are some of the things that we have in place to stop collusion and people voting biases. But I imagine that some people will. We hope that, and we believe that the mechanism is designed such that it will withstand that.
Seems like this kind of system could have an API behind it, where on Facebook, when someone shares an article, there might be maybe a score or some kind of indication of what proof it's
Yeah,
about.
that's the. You just laid out the vision. Yeah, we would love to one day be able to become the independent, determination of what is either validated as true or false, or unsure, meaning that there isn't any consensus on it. And what's really kind of beautiful about it is that the crowd is determining it. You're not hiring some company or some independent fact checker to go through with their biases and to determine whether or not something's true or false. We're asking the world to do it. And we think the world is very capable of determining whether or not something's true or false if they're incentivized to do so.
How do the articles get scored? Is it just true, false, or unknown, or is there like a number?
So we have multiple iterations of the product that are going to be released. Our first, minimum viable product that's going to be released at the end of the year is going to be an up-down true-false score. Just what is the percentage, and is it true or false? And we really believe this is the right way to go because it'll capture what is blatantly false and blatantly true. Not blatantly, but true, but like obviously true quite easily. It may struggle with the gray, but it's a good mechanism to determine what is the trash and the good stuff quite easily. And after that, we plan to release some more details on future products that'll go line by line fact checking and incentivizing people to do that, to give some more granular detail on what you're reading on the internet.
Yeah, because a lot of articles will have a mix of truth and fiction in there. So what have been some of the challenges of solving this problem?
Sure. There are a ton of challenges. A lot of what are challenges from a technical perspective is trying to construct a voting mechanism that is, trustless, auditable, all the things that we want. But also, just given the fact that all the content that we're trying to evaluate is exogenous to our system, that's outside of our system, we need to deal with the fact that things are changing outside of our closed system, and we need to be able to adapt. So links can change, author can change content after we validate. So there's a lot of different things that people can do outside of our system that can impact the way our brand or the community is viewed. So that's a challenge as well. And the other thing is really trying to communicate this concept to people is something that we are really trying to nail down. And that's why interviews like this are really helpful.
And how have people reacted to it? Are you having a lot of people sign up as voters? Or are you accepting voters now?
So we are not accepting voters yet. We will be in a few months. But right now what we're trying to do is get the word out, explain to people what we're doing. We'll actually be releasing a game that we call Proof It, which is designed to educate people on what it will be like to become a voter on our platform. That should be coming out within the next 2 weeks, so look out for that. But that game will essentially be somewhat of a trivia game where you're going to wager points and have the ability to win proof tokens in the future. So I think that will be an interesting development to see how people can contribute. But we're really just trying to educate people right now rather than sign people up. But anybody who does want to get more information about what we're doing, they can always come to the website, subscribe, read the newsletter, etc.
And so what are some of your other plans for the future?
Yeah, it's a great question. So the one thing I did mention was the fact checking. But really, we think that once this mechanism is sound and created and is working, there are many applications for it that go outside of misinformation and fake content. So if you think about anything that needs to be voted for or rated or upvoted or downvoted, a lot of the problems with those type of things is that there's no disincentive at all, and what you tend to get is a lot of junk. So Amazon reviews, a lot of them are fake. Same thing with Yelp. Anybody can just write anything. Everybody has a microphone, and what tends to happen there is the ratings can do okay, but they also allow people to, ruin brands and do things like that. So we think that there'll be applications for this voting mechanism that go beyond just misinformation. And I think that we can make some modifications to make it a little bit of a better version of a TCR or a token curated registry. And then other things, we think that it could be really applicable to education and also the legal market. There are, it could be, our game, for example, could be a great way to have professors conduct pop quizzes and actually elicit the truth a little bit better than a traditional pop quiz, because we have this wagering functionality where you're actually trying to measure somebody's intensity of their opinion rather than just the opinion outright.
That's really interesting. Yeah, the problem with the fake news is it's just an epidemic. It's a really interesting project. Is there anything that I should have asked you that maybe I missed?
So we will be, just so people understand where we are in the process and where we're going to be. We raised our seed funding from Reflected Ventures closed on that in May of this year. We have a full development team out and running that spans the United States to Poland at this point, and that's growing. And it's a completely remote team that's working on building these products. And we will be launching a Reg CF crowdfunding in about a month or so for people to become early investors into the project and have the ability to become part of an actual network. And then we will be also conducting a Reg A Plus token offering that will be submitted to the SEC. And that will probably be conducted early next year. So we're trying to go the correct route from a legal sense and try to do things the right way. There are laws in place, and we're trying to follow them. And but we do think we can do that and also have, kind of the benefits of a token that a lot of these other projects have. And hopefully we can, create the token such that the users of our platform are really the owners of it, rather than just another network that an outside company extracts rent from.
Well, that sounds really awesome. I'll make sure I have all those links for all your site and the newsletter and everything so people can keep up. So thank you so much for coming on.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
Thanks, Luigi, for coming on the show. Fake news is an epidemic. I really hope your project can help us. If you want to learn more about Proof, check the show notes. I've got all the links right down there. You've been listening to the Talking Cryptocurrency podcast. My name is Jason Rigden, and I have been your host. Thanks for listening to the show. If you liked it, would you please consider giving us a rating and a review on iTunes? I look forward to talking to you again soon. Have a great day.